I mean, it's what people understand. How about this question? Do you plan to vote in the November election? What's wrong with that? Are you eligible to vote? Okay. Okay, so if you're over 18 and I ask you, do you plan to vote in the November election? Well, how do you think you're going to respond? You who are good high school citizens. You're more than likely you're going to say yes. Most people respond yes.
Did you vote in the last election?
So the good way to ask. So a good way to ask this question is to ask somebody's voting history. And that's what they do. That's what pollsters do. They see if you voted in the last special election. You know, they see what kind of a committed voter you are, and that will tell you more about whether or not somebody's going to vote in the next election. Why do you ask people whether or not they're going to vote in the next election? Conversation started? No, we're talking about surveys. Why? Yes. Yes. That. So comparing this to old data, yeah, so you can look and see if they plan to vote versus that they didn't vote the last time. Any other reasons that you might ask somebody if they're going to vote?
It'll allow campaign managers to determine which target groups they should target to make the vote.
Looking at target groups for who we're going to aim at to try to sway the vote. Yes. So not everybody votes. So this is going to let us exclude people from our survey. How about how about the people we want to include in our survey? Yes, ma'am.
You don't know what they're voting for. There are a lot of things on the ballot, and they may, vote for senator, but not for congressman.
Oh, so a problem with this is that they may not be voting for the thing that you're asking them about. Yeah. So. They may not be voting for the propositions that you're asking about. Yeah, it's something that the pollsters try to get out of people so that they can get an idea of who people are voting for and what people are voting for. So if somebody is not going to vote in November, they don't want your opinion because you're not going to make a difference in the vote. So then they move on. They tend not to ask the next question if they don't think you're voting in the next election. Is a big reason that they ask this question. Okay, how do you like this one? How often do you go out with friends, and how happy are you in general? What's wrong with this question? Well, we can ask 2 questions. When you write a survey, you might ask 10 or 20 questions. You ever been stopped by those people at the mall? They stop you, they ask you questions for 5 minutes. They don't ask you just one question. Yes?
They might be implying that if you go against them,
Yes, so do you think that the first question has some influence over how you're going to answer the second question? Yeah. There's an assumption there that you have friends, but generally we are social creatures. We have some friends. Well, yes, we do, but but in putting these 2 questions together, your opinion about how happy you are may be based on your answer to how often you go out with your friends. So yes. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? Are you, so 1 is clinically depressed and getting a gun, and 10 is jubilant. Okay. So this is a bad set of questions here. How about this? Do you support the president's domestic plan? What's wrong with that question? What is the president's domestic plan? Yeah, this is a very, very large topic. There are probably many parts you support and many parts you don't. So, okay. Do you consider yourself a fan of Michael Jackson? And who do you think was the greatest rock and roll musician? 98% of the people are going to text in and say Michael Jackson, aren't they? Yeah. Michael Jackson isn't a rock and roll musician? What is he? He's a pop musician? Sorry, I wrote the question badly. All right. Sorry. All right. Okay. So now we've seen. Oh, here, I love this one. Shouldn't former drug dealers not be allowed to work in hospitals after they are released from prison?
So many negatives.
I can't. Too many negatives in there. Can't understand.
Former drugs not ever be allowed to not work in hospitals once they're not.
Once they're no longer.
Yeah.
So, okay, yet another bad question. All right, so we want good questions. So, but now we're gonna eventually we're gonna write some good questions. But let's move on to something else. Anybody remember the key difference between an observational study and an experiment? Yes.
There's a treatment.
Experiments have a treatment.
Oh shoot. You're making it how
I know it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And what is the other difference? They don't have a treatment. We can make cause and effect conclusions. With which? Only with experiments. I know it's like, but it's a little weird. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you had that in mind. Okay, I ask you, it's coming up soon. What is a method? What is a method called when we gather information about an entire population? A census. Very good. Yes. Next year. I was in San Francisco this summer at in a neighborhood, and there was a census guy walking down the street. They're doing some preliminary data now. Okay. Okay. I don't know how old you have to be a census worker. They tend, they need a lot of people, and they tend not to pay too much. So, I don't know if they will let you do it. I think that would be a question more for the census people than for me. I don't work for the U.S. Census. Yeah, there you go. Go to census.gov. Do you know about how many questions? Do you know about how many questions you're asked on the census? Yeah, very few, like 10, maybe 5 questions on your census. They don't really ask you a lot, because if they asked you too many questions, you wouldn't fill out the census. So it takes just a few minutes to fill out. And do you know, do they look at individuals, or do they look at households? They look at households, homes. So if you don't have a home, then they look at you individually. But if you are homeless, but otherwise the census is about household. What do you think would be an easier way to gather information about an entire population? What do you think? Texting. Texting is a survey, and a survey is a sampling. Okay? So we have a population, and we have a sample from the population. You're getting information from the whole population by a census. You're getting information from a sample of the population by sampling. Oh, well, those words are pretty easy. So we don't want to have one of those bad surveys like we went through before and like we saw on the video yesterday. Okay? Bias. The definition of bias is Fox News. Okay. If your sampling method is biased, if you systematically favor a certain outcome by your questions, by the people that you choose, by the way you ask the questions, you favor a certain